Hi Year 12, this is what we got up to yesterday. We started looking at urban consolidation. Best way to describe it is it's building up rather than building out. We are trying to use space that already exists, buildings that already exist, and increase the density of population that live there. So it's the idea that we're having high-rise apartment buildings. We are trying to have a larger number of people live in the space that is already being used. What this does is it leads to less loss of habitat because we're not degrading other land to try and clear it to build single-story dwellings. And we're trying to use infrastructure more efficiently. Roads that are already there, transport links that are already there. There are downsides, things like increased traffic, increased pollution, but on the whole, urban consolidation, pretty good. Places where it's happening, anywhere where there's high-rise apartments buildings going up. It's happened in DY, it's happening in Everleigh, Barangaroo, Surrey Hills, anywhere where you see really significant apartment building blocks, that's where it's happening. More and more we're seeing this idea of people buying off the plan, where developers are buying up large blocks of land and selling apartments before they're actually being built. So they're getting people to commit in the sort of planning phase, getting money out of them, and then they're building the apartments over the course of a few years. What that's doing is giving local governments an idea of the characteristics, the demographics of people buying, and they can build infrastructure accordingly. So that might be that they're young families buying properties, there needs to be parks, primary schools, shopping centres, etc., etc. So it can actually really assist governments in planning for the long term. As we look at Sydney and it continues to grow, we are going to see more and more examples of urban consolidation happening, particularly in these corridors that we call them, connection points between the CBD and the outer suburban areas. We see the Northwest Connects corridor. We're going to look specifically at the Everleigh corridor when we do our suburb, and the idea of that sort of one long line down Broadway, past Sydney Uni, that connects Alexandria, Surrey Hills, Redfern with the CBD. Now, we're seeing the characteristics of that area change. We're seeing it be renewed as part of the urban consolidation process. The baby boomers are retiring, they're going off for their C change, chi change, whatever it might be, and the Gen Xers are starting to move in. It's quite a hipster lifestyle area now, and we're seeing lots of younger people coming into the areas. Not everyone loves it, it's fair. It's a bit sterile, some people might say. We see this loss of character, we see the culture of place changing, and we also see the displacement of people that have been living there for a long period of time. Particularly when we talk about Millers Point around Observatory Hill, where we had a lot of government commission housing commission, and now that's been sold off to private developers. We're getting urban consolidation, and the whole characteristic of the area is changing. So check out the little cartoon, I think that's quite cool. Urban decay and urban renewal, they kind of go hand in hand. You can't have urban renewal without urban decay existing already. And urban renewal and urban consolidation are very, very closely interlinked as well. And when we do our case study on Everleigh, we'll look at that really explicitly. DY is another example of where the two interlink. We see that urban decay has started to take place in DY. It was looking a bit derelict. It was looking a bit sort of shabby, quite forgotten. We get lots of developers come in and start to build high rises, brand new buildings, brand new infrastructure to go with it. All of a sudden we have urban renewal. We had the place looking really good, housing prices are going up, and it's a place that people want to live now. Gentrification isn't actually an urban dynamic of change, but it's really important you know what it is and understand how it relates to our urban dynamics. The process of gentrification happens through urban renewal. When we clean up an area, we make it nice, we make people want to live there, we are gentrifying it. We're making it more desirable, bringing up the SES of the region. Darling Harbour, Ultimo, Pyrmont is a really good example of that. Surrey Hills too, where 20 years ago, it was not a desirable place to live. Redfern, another good one. Think about the block. It used to be a really Indigenous heavy area, quite a dangerous area where people were kind of afraid to go. The area is renewed, it's consolidated, gentrification occurs, and now it's some of the most expensive real estate in Sydney. Here's a little case study for you on Rhodes. Rhodes was, it is very much an up and coming area. Lots of redevelopment happening there. It used to be very industrial. They used to produce a lot of pesticides, think Agent Orange, DDT, things like that. None of the nice stuff. In the 1990s, it was very much redeveloped, and now it is a shopping hub. You've got the IKEA out there, you've got the Rhodes Shopping Centre, big shopping mall, and lots of apartments going up all around it. In addition to that, lots of businesses are starting to make their headquarters around there too. Nestle, NAB, they've all got their main office buildings out at Rhodes rather than the CBD. It's cheaper rent for them, they're able to access a different clientele of workers, and they're finding it to be really successful. Urban villages is our next urban dynamic, and this is the idea of people of a distinct culture coming together and sort of forming their own community within the greater community of Sydney itself. The big one that we talk about is in Fairfield, Cabramatta. We talk about the Vietnamese community there. We have some other ones along the bottom there for you, some examples. Little Italy and Leichhardt, Darlinghurst. We talk about the Gayborhood. That's the new one. But all of these are really good examples of places being brought together by distinctive cultural characteristics. Cities within cities, we've talked about that a little bit when we talked about the idea of urbanisation as a process, the idea that we have these suburbs that are popping up on the outskirts of the city that are really becoming their own mini CBDs. Chats would be a good example, Bondi Junction, Parramatta, Liverpool, anywhere there is a Westfield is kind of this idea of a city within a city being developed. That process can be both positive and negative. It can lead to negative connotations, like the idea of an insular peninsula. We might say that Northern Beaches is quite insular. They have this idea that people don't need to leave the Northern Beaches. Like, it has everything you need. You don't need to venture across the bridge. People can be quite self-sufficient. And so that can be a negative, that people become quite insular. But the positive of that is that people are able to have more family time. They're doing less transport, less travelling, and it's also better for the environment in a way as well. If you think people aren't doing heavy commutes, they aren't really increasing their CO2 emissions, so we can see the benefits to this as well. Spatial exclusion. It is that idea of a fortress. We take it from Fortress America. Build a gate and keep people out, or keep the rich people in. And that's kind of what's happening. It's very exclusive. It's literally cutting off the wealthy from the rest of the community by a fence. We have Zenith Gardens down in French's Forest as our local example. Other examples are in Macquarie Park, Riley Park. There's some examples down the bottom of some international spatial exclusions. For example, the one in Miami, which actually requires a bridge for you to get to. It's its own little private island. Now that's real spatial exclusion. These places are often much more expensive to live, but they come with added luxuries. They might have a communal pool, a communal gym, security guards sometimes, people that do the bins for you. Like, there's luxury inclusions that are part of your sort of package when you buy the property. We don't have that many compared to other countries, but they are starting to pop up more and more. That's it, folks. End of the Urban Dynamics PowerPoint. What you need to do now is complete the Mongolia skills worksheet. And when you've done that, can you please take a photo of each side and upload it as a file to the due work, and I can see what you got right. Thanks.